No, you're not. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Sunday Talks with Vinny. I'm sorry I was gone for a couple of weeks. Holidays, travel, Christmas, New Year's, you know, the whole gamut. I'm actually up in the mountains of Tennessee right now, which is great. Making a little stop on the way home to South Carolina, and it just feels good to be in the Appalachians again. I'm trying to clear my head this morning, so I've been splitting some firewood. It just really helps, you know, just get outside and chop some firewood. It solves a lot of problems. But I think the episode of today's video will be called I Am Enough. And my response to that is no, you're not. Now here's the thing. Competence without confidence is useless. But confidence without competence is deadly. Now, ignorance is the death of the novice, and complacency is the death of the expert. But a complacent ignoramus is the death of everybody, right? So having this whole philosophy of I'm good enough just the way I am is potentially dangerous. You might see this if you're ever in the skilled trades. You got the kid who's fresh out of college who thinks he knows everything, so he's way too comfortable, way too fast, pushes the wrong button and blows something up. I'm sure those of you in the skilled trades have got a million horror stories just like that. And that is kind of rooted in kind of a biblical scripture, pride goeth before the fall. And complacency is not necessarily pride, but it is being way too comfortable with yourself, and that doesn't do you good. I think it's good to be satisfied with an accomplishment. There's nothing wrong with being proud of accomplishing something, hard work, achievements, etc., etc. But what you don't want to be is ignorant on the topic and complacent with it at the same time. Now, as many of you know, I do tree work for a living, and it's really dangerous work, and maybe you've watched some of those hilarious YouTube fails of people trying to cut down a tree where they're ignorant and complacent, and they cut straight through, the tree snaps in half, and almost gets killed. That's not what we want to be in our lives. When we are ignorant, we must be cautious. And everybody's ignorant on something. Ignorance is not inherently wrong, and ignorance is not inherently an insult. Stupid is, but ignorance not so much. Now, I am ignorant to many things of this world, as are you. And I know a lot of things that you don't know, and you know a lot of things that I don't know. And that's okay. But what we don't want to be is comfortable in our own ignorance. We should be looking forward to learning new things. Maybe not even every day, but at least every week try to learn something new. A lot of us have the daily grind, and it's difficult to just go out and pick up a new skill right away. That doesn't mean we still shouldn't strive to achieve these things. But you do need to kind of check your pride on these things, because you can get yourself hurt if not. Because I've tried to take on projects that were too big in my ignorance. When I first started out doing tree work, I tried to drop a pine tree, and I used ratchet straps and a ladder, and I had climbing spikes, but I didn't have a proper flip line and ropes, and couldn't really get up the tree, so I tried to rope it as best I could, pull it down with ratchet straps. It twisted and took out some power lines. That is a great example of being confident without being competent. Now, luckily, Duke Energy didn't find the pants off of me, because all I did was tear an S hook out of a telephone pole. But that was a great example of being a little too confident and a little too incompetent at the same time, and I accidentally shut off power to the neighborhood. Boy, I looked like a fool. So you have to learn from those little life lessons, should they be handed to you. But I do want to stress that point, because ignorance is a problem that every human being has, and then maybe I shouldn't call it a problem. That might be too harsh. But ignorance is just the human condition. It's normal. but it can really bite us in the ass if we're not careful, if we're way too confident in ourselves and we have this I am enough mentality. Because once you start saying I am enough, then there's no need to continue progressing. Like this old pickup truck, for example, um, I'm kind of okay with where it is right now, just because it is enough for me, right? It starts, it runs, it moves, it stops. I got no radio, no power windows. I barely have headlights. Body is 6 different colors, and it's kind of been that way for several years because I look at it and say, it's good enough. And a lot of people love the old rat rod look, I get it, but let's wax a little bit more philosophical. This thing has been rusty and ugly and beat up for years because I've had the mindset of, it's enough. It's still, all the paint's flaking off, it's got rust holes, everything's crooked, and well, that might provide some character for an old work truck. It doesn't really provide character for you. You don't want to be covered in rust holes. You don't want to be crooked. You don't want to be misaligned. Those are not the things you want for your own life. You are not a pickup truck. You're not an old piece of farm equipment that has character. You are a human being with a soul and a mind and a future and a past and a present. Having this I am enough mindset leaves you looking like you've been sitting out in the field for 40 years. And I don't think that's the way you want to live for yourself. I think you should have the exact opposite philosophy of I am not enough, so what can I do to get bigger, get better? Stronger, faster, like the song says. Like it's, what can I do to get to a better place? Because kind of back to one of my earlier episodes about stagnant water, water that is stagnant becomes toxic. You don't want to stay in the same place, and you don't want to have this ridiculous mentality. Because when you get to this I'm perfect the way I am kind of mindset, it can kill you. We've seen several fat acceptance influencers die in the last couple of years at, 30, 35 years of age because they have this ridiculously complacent mindset of I'm fine just the way I am and you should accept it, and that way of thinking literally killed them because they adhered to their philosophy. I'm fine just the way I am. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm beautiful and healthy at any size. And they died before turning 40. I don't know if any of them have kids, but they didn't live long enough to see their kids graduate middle school, let alone high school. I don't think that's what you want for your life. That right there, this example, again, I think 4 or 5, 6 people have died all before 40 simply by adhering to this ideology of I'm good enough. So, like, there's several examples right there of why it's not good for your life. We are in the act of becoming, as the philosopher would say, and I think that's a point that needs to be stressed all the time, because again, this complacency, this arrogance, this self-indulgence, all of this me, it will kill you. And we've got examples to prove that it won't just metaphorically kill you, but it will literally kill you. And I would rather see you succeed in life. I want you to be fit. I want you to be healthy, to make money and to pay your bills and just be a happy, productive person. I would rather have that be a thing in your life than to be lying to yourself, telling yourself that, I'm just fine the way I am. It's everybody else who's crazy, and then it ends up killing you. I don't want that for you. I know you and I have a kind of a weird relationship. I'm a man who screams at the internet, but you, on the other side of this camera, are a living, breathing human being with a soul and a mind of his or her own. And I don't want anybody to fall into that trap, because you'll die a sad and lonely death, and not at an old age. To kind of go off on a tangent here, like my grandfather died when he was 86 years old, and he loved his family, and he always worked hard, and he was never satisfied because he always wanted to do better. So he paid his house off early. He always kept up with his bills. He took his wife to Hawaii. He bought his wife a new car. Like, he did a lot of wonderful things, right? He never stopped and said, I'm enough. Everything is enough. It's good enough. Now there was satisfaction. He did eat the grapes of his field, and that is perfectly acceptable. And even from the more Christian perspective, that is biblical. It is not a sin to eat the grapes of your field. No, if you till that metaphorical or literal land, you are well within your right to eat your grapes. But he didn't get satisfied. He didn't get complacent. And he kept doing things up until he couldn't anymore. And he died at a ripe old age of 86, and he got to say his goodbyes. I think that's a pretty good way to go. Not to sound cold here, but I didn't cry at my grandfather's funeral. Um, if anything, I was satisfied because he lived his life to the fullest. He didn't adhere to this "I'm good enough" mentality. No, he kept at it. He kept at the grind in his own way, and even if it was just being responsible with his money and making sure all his bills were paid on time, like he was always doing something just to be better. He was active in his church. He was very generous with his time and skills and money. Yeah, but for a long time into his retirement, he would fix his neighbors' cars for free out of the kindness of his heart. He was always doing things. And my grandmother, God bless her, she's 89 and she runs circles around me, and she didn't adhere to this "I'm good enough, me" mentality. And at 89 years of age, she still goes on road trips. She's been babysitting our 6-month-old baby. I don't know how she does it. It's incredible. But there's just a couple anecdotes, a couple real-world examples of ditching this modern social media, whatever philosophy, and just kind of putting your nose to the grindstone and keeping busy. As I got 2 different people in my life. One of them died at 86. One of them is 89 and still going strong. Grandpa had a good run. And I hope the same for you. But you'll definitely never make it to that point if you get complacent. So, thank you all for listening to my rant. Sorry it's been a couple weeks, but for those of you who are stick around, I'm really grateful that you're here and listening to me. And I hope these videos can be a positive influence on you in some way. So until next week, and until we meet again, stay gold.